Chapter 36. Mafias. I grabbed the keys, jumped into the driver's seat, and floored the gas. Charles was in danger, and I couldn't lose him. The black car ahead swerved through track, but I stayed close until a motorcycle cut across my path. I can't lose Charles. I slammed the brakes, crashing into the bike. Panicking, I rushed to the rider. "I'm so sorry," I blurted. The rider, calm but tense, dusted himself off. "I'm Alessandro," he said, offering a hand. "What's your name, though?" he asked. I dug into my purse, pulling out a wad of cash. "Stella, I'm in a hurry." I shoved $2,000 into his hand. "I don't have time." I ran back to my car. The limo was gone. Heart sinking, I sped off, desperately scanning for any sign of it. At a fork, I followed faint tire marks down a shadowy road. Suddenly, my car jolted, a flat tire. No spare, no phone. Stranded. As tears overwhelmed me, a knock on my window made me jump. It was Alessandro. "I said I was sorry," I snarled, trying to keep my voice steady. "Wasn't $2,000 enough?" He leaned against the car, his blue eyes studying me. "I didn't come here for the money," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I came to help. It's a little rude to assume otherwise." "I don't need your help," I shot back, even though I didn't believe my own words. I was stranded, in the dark, with no phone and no idea where to go. But how could I trust him? He must have sensed my hesitation, because without a word, he reached into his jacket, pulled out a handgun, and handed it to me. "Here, take it." I stared at the gun in disbelief. "You? What?" "If you're scared, then take it," he said, his tone casual. "I won't hurt you." I took the gun from him, its cold weight foreign in my hands. And why should I believe that? I forced a laugh, though it came out shaky. "You're carrying a gun. That's not exactly comforting." He smirked. "Consider me a cop, then." "Yeah, right. Real convincing," I muttered. But deep down, I knew I didn't have a choice. I was stuck here, and without help, I wasn't going anywhere. I hesitated, glancing around at the dark forest. My options were limited. "Why so tense?" he asked, his tone almost teasing. "It's nothing," I lied. There was no way I was telling him about Charles or what I was really doing out here. "So what's your last name, beautiful?" he asked, glancing back at me with a flirty smirk. "It's none of your business," I replied, coldly, gripping the gun tighter. "Whoa, easy there," he chuckled. "Rude much?" I said nothing, my mind only on one thing: finding Charles. No matter how dark this night got, I had to find him. I just hoped I wasn't too late. My mind raced with thoughts of Charles, where he could be, what they were doing to him. If I was already too late, why did they take him? The stranger in front of me hadn't said much since we started riding, but every now and then, he glanced at me through the rearview mirror, his blue eyes watching me with that unreadable expression. Finally, the silence broke. "So," he called over the roar of the engine, "are you going to keep being all mysterious, or are you going to tell me your last name?" I rolled my eyes. "I already told you. It's none of your business." He chuckled. the sound low and warm, but with an edge that made me wary. Fiery. I like that. Not many women have the guts to talk to me like that. I'm not interested in what you like, I muttered, gripping the gun he'd given me a little tighter. He slowed the bike slightly, turning his head just enough to give me a playful glance. You know, most people don't treat me this way when they find out who I am. I raised an eyebrow, despite the fact he couldn't see it. Oh yeah? And who are you exactly? He smiled, as if he'd been waiting for me to ask. Alessandro, he said smoothly, letting the name roll off his tongue. Alessandro De Luca. Didn't you already told me your name? You really don't know? He sounded almost amused. I'm the second richest mafia boss in the country. My stomach flipped at the word mafia, but I kept my face impassive. Congratulations, I said flatly. Should I clap? He laughed, the sound rich and dark. You're funny. I like that. But seriously, I'm not someone you want to brush off so easily, Stella. Let me guess. You think telling me you're some big-shot mafia boss is supposed to impress me? Alessandro shrugged, clearly not bothered by my sarcasm. I think it should at least make you a little curious. Most people would be. Well, I'm not most people, I shot back, my eyes narrowing. I don't care who you are. All I want is to find Charles. After speaking, I realized I told him about Charles. Fuck, Stella, you weren't supposed to tell him everything. You don't even know him, I said to myself. He tilted his head slightly, those blue eyes sharp and assessing. Charles, your boyfriend? None of your business. His grin widened. So that's a yes. I gritted my teeth. Are you done playing games? Or are you actually going to help me? Oh, I'll help, he said, the teasing tone still in his voice. But I can't help but wonder. What's a woman like you doing chasing after a man who clearly doesn't know how to protect himself? I scowled at him, my pulse quickening with anger. You don't know anything about Charles. He shrugged again, as if my anger was nothing more than amusement to him. I know enough. Men like him, they get themselves in trouble and expect someone else to clean up the mess. In my world, that doesn't fly. Good thing I'm not in your world, Ben, I snapped. He chuckled, a sound that sent an uncomfortable shiver down my spine. You might be closer to my world than you think. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. Alessandro didn't answer right away. He slowed the bike to a stop near a clearing, killing the engine. The sudden silence was unnerving, the only sound of the wind rustling through the trees. He turned to face me fully now, his eyes locking onto mine. It means, he said, his voice lower, more serious, that people like you, who get mixed up with dangerous men, they're never as far from my world as they think they are. I swallowed hard, gripping the gun in my hand like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I'm not mixed up with anyone, I said, though my voice wavered slightly. Alessandro's smile returned, softer this time, but no less unsettling. You are now. He stepped closer, leaning down so his face was level with mine. But don't worry, I'll make sure nothing happens to you. I tried to scoff, but his proximity made it hard to breathe. I don't need your protection. I can protect myself. He straightened up, laughing softly. "We'll see about that." Then his expression shifted, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "But you know, if you ever get tired of Charles, my offer still stands." I blinked at him. "What offer?" "Charles isn't my boyfriend." "A meal," he winked, that playful grin returning. "I never ask for something twice, but for you, I might make an exception." I couldn't help but roll my eyes, though part of me was tempted to smile at how absurd he was. "Thanks, but I think," Alessandro sighed dramatically. "Your loss. But don't say I didn't warn you when you realize you could have had dinner with the second richest mafia in the country." He flashed me one last grin before turning back to the bike, the engine roaring to life again. I gave him a fake, rude smile. As we rode further into the woods, his words echoed in my mind. Alessandro De Luca, a mafia boss, flirting with me like we were at some high-end club instead of stranded in the middle of nowhere. I had no idea what kind of mess I was getting ahead. Panic hit me when I realized I didn't actually know where I was. I'd been following Charles around like a lost puppy, trusting him with everything. The truth was, I didn't know the name of the street or even the directions back to the penthouse. Actually, I don't know," I admitted, embarrassed. "It's a huge penthouse, if that helps. I was at the grocery store nearby." He raised an eyebrow. "There are 1,000 penthouses in this city. And you're going to need more than that." "Which grocery store?" I bit my lip, feeling even more foolish. "Honestly, I don't know the area well. I just followed Charles everywhere." I paused, then brightened at a thought. "Do you have a charger? I can call my friend to come pick me up." Alessandro let out a soft laugh, shaking his head. "You really are lost, aren't you?" He patted his jacket as if checking for something. "Bad luck. I forgot to bring my power bank today. But," he paused, tilting his head with a mischievous smile, "you could come with me to my place. It's safer than staying out here, and you can call your friend once we get there." I hesitated, eyeing him warily. "I don't think that's a good idea." He gave me a look, a mix of amusement and challenge. "Oh, so now you're scared of me because I'm Mafia?" "I'm not scared," I shot back defensively. "I just don't think—" "Stop pretending," he interrupted, his voice soft but firm. "You can keep the gun if it makes you feel better. But if you think I'm the kind of man who would hurt you without your consent, you're wrong. I don't operate like that." I studied his face for a long moment, trying to read him, but his expression remained calm, confident. "Sign," I finally said. "But don't forget, I've got this." I gestured to the gun still in my hand. "If you try anything, I won't hesitate to empty the clip into your head." Alessandro smiled, unfazed by my threat. "Fair enough. I like a woman who knows how to handle herself." He revved the engine once more, and we rode in silence for the next 20 minutes, weaving through the dark streets until we reached a part of town that screamed wealth and power. The buildings grew taller, sleeker, and the streets quieter, like this area was reserved for only the most elite. Soon, we pulled up to a massive, iron-wrought gate, guarded by 2 men dressed in black suits with earpieces, who nodded respectfully as soon as they saw Alessandro. "Home sweet home," Alessandro said, his tone casual, but I could feel the weight of what lay behind those. As the gates swung open, I was greeted with the sight of an enormous mansion, a sprawling estate that looked more like a fortress and a home. The driveway was lined with more guards, all armed, standing at attention as we passed. Tall, stone walls encircled the property, and the building itself was grand, with towering columns, massive windows, and a dark, imposing beauty. The entire place radiated power, wealth, and danger. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the gun in my hand. "This is your house?" I asked, my voice barely hiding the awe and suspicion. Alessandro gave a half smile, parking the bike in front of the mansion's steps. "Impressive, isn't it? It's been in my family for generations. A lot of business is handled here." "Business," I echoed, glancing at the guards stationed around the property. This was no ordinary business. This was mafia business. Alessandro climbed off the bike and offered me his hand. I ignored it, stepping off on my own, still gripping the gun. "You don't have to keep holding that," he said, nodding toward the gun. "But if it makes you feel safer, go ahead. I told you, I'm not going to hurt you." I glanced around again, eyeing the guards, the cameras mounted on the walls, and the sheer size of the mansion. "And all of these people, the guards? They work for me," Alessandro said simply, as if it were the most normal thing in the world to have an army of bodyguards at your disposal. "They're here to make sure nothing happens to me, or anyone I bring here." I didn't relax, but I did tuck the gun into my jacket, keeping it within reach. "All right," I said slowly. "Let's get this over with. Where can I charge my phone?" Alessandro smiled, leading me up the wide marble steps to the front door. As we walked, I couldn't help but notice how the guards watched me carefully, assessing, but not hostile. Almost like they were curious about me. The inside of the mansion was even more extravagant than the outside. High ceilings, chandeliers dripping with crystal, marble floors polished to a mirror shine. The place smelled of expensive leather and the faintest hint of cigar smoke. The walls were lined with artwork, each piece more expensive looking than the last. Alessandro led me through a grand hallway, finally stopping in a massive living room that looked more like a luxury hotel lobby. He gestured toward a sleek, modern couch. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll grab a charger." I sat on the edge of the couch, my heart still racing. The place was beautiful, but it felt like a cage, one built for people who thrived in the shadows. He returned moments later with a charger, tossing it onto the table in front of me. "Here, you can call your friend." I plugged in my phone, watching as the battery icon slowly flickered to life. As the device powered up, I looked up at Alessandro, who was leaning casually against the wall, watching me with that same playful glint in his eyes. "So now that you're here," he said, "maybe you'll reconsider that dinner?" I raised an eyebrow. "This isn't a date, Alessandro." He chuckled, pushing off the wall and strolling toward me. "Who said anything about a date? Consider it a gesture of goodwill." I gave him a skeptical look, but before I could respond, my phone buzzed to life. I immediately dialed Klaus's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic flared inside me again. Not answering? Alessandro asked, his voice softer now, the teasing tone gone. I shook my head, biting my lip. No. He studied me for a moment, then sighed. Tell you what, stay here tonight, and tomorrow I'll help you find him. You don't have to trust me, but at least you'll be safe. I looked around the room, weighing my options. I didn't have many. With no idea where I was or where Charles could be, staying here might be my best option. For now, or why Klaus isn't answering. Fine, I said slowly, but I'm keeping the gun. Alessandro smirked. Fair enough, Stella. I didn't stop dialing Klaus in the hope that he will pick up soon. I dialed the number for one last time. Pick up. Come on, please pick the phone, damn it. I prayed in my mind. Finally, he picked up the call. Stella, where are you, and why isn't Charles answering his phone? Klaus's voice carried concern, though it was firm. I hesitated, unable to respond in front of Alessandro. I didn't trust him, not enough to say everything. Hold on, Klaus, I said, making a quick gesture towards Alessandro. Could you show me someone I can be alone for a few minutes? He raised an eyebrow, but obliged with a slight smile. Sure, you can use the balcony to the left. I nodded and walked briskly to the balcony. The cool air hit me as I stepped outside, but my mind was racing. I quickly dialed Klaus back and filled him in on everything that had happened. Okay, Stella, now think back. Was Charles wearing his glasses and mask when you saw him? Yes, all the time, I replied, my voice steady, but my heart uneasy. He didn't take off the mask or the glasses. Did he meet anyone along the way? No, we just picked up the groceries. We were about to leave when 5 men appeared and forced him to go with them. Do you remember their faces? I closed my eyes, the scene flashing in my mind. No, they were all wearing masks. Only their eyes were visible, although one man stood out. He had one green eye and one gray eye. He seemed to be their leader. There was a pause. Klaus was processing the information. Okay, where are you now? The bike guy. He's some mafia leader. I'll send you the address. Can you come and get me? I'm on my way. Stay safe, Stella, and keep your phone's location on. Will do. I hung up, turned on my location, and took a deep breath. I was about to leave the balcony when the distant sound of screaming froze me in place. A man's voice, angry, desperate, in pain, echoed up from the room beneath me. The sheer rage in his voice was chilling, as though he was being tortured. I leaned over the railing, peering down, and made up my mind. I needed to see what was happening. I turned to leave the balcony when Alessandro's voice called out, sharp and unexpected. Stella! I spun around, startled. He was walking towards me with his usual cool demeanor. Alessandro, there's a man downstairs. I heard him screaming. What's going on down there? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Oh, that? An old friend. No one's allowed in there. But you. His voice dropped to a soft, almost dangerous tone. You're special. I might be able to make an exception. I hesitated, weighing his words. His invitation felt both like an opportunity and a threat. That's kind of you. So, can I go down there? Alessandro's smirk deepened. Let's go. I'll take you there myself. He led me down a narrow staircase. The air grew colder with each step, and soon the bright light of the upper floors disappeared. We stopped in front of a heavy wooden door, nearly camouflaged with the dark stone walls surrounding it. Alessandro pushed it open with ease, as though he had done this 100 times. Inside, the room was suffocatingly dark, the only light seeping through a small, barred window in the far corner. The air was damp and stale, carrying the scent of something metallic. Blood, maybe. The walls were a dull black, blending into the shadows so thoroughly that it was impossible to tell where the room ended. A single hanging bulb flickered weakly overhead, casting long, distorted shadows across the floor. The room felt like a tomb, a place meant to hide the darkest secrets. The man's screaming grew louder as we entered. I could barely make out his form, bound to a chair in the center of the room. His shirt was torn, his face bloodied, his eyes wild with fury and fear. Chains rattled as he struggled, but it was clear he wasn't going anywhere. Alessandro watched my reaction with cold amusement. "Welcome to the darker side of things," he said, his voice a low purr. "Still want to be here?" I wanted to see the man's face. His features were shrouded in the darkness, barely discernible beneath the dim, flickering light. Something about his screams, about the raw, visceral anger in his voice, stirred an unsettling feeling in my chest. Alessandra's gaze was still on me, watching my every move, but I ignored him. My curiosity, or maybe something deeper, was pulling me forward. Without a word, I stepped closer. Each footstep felt heavy, the air thick with tension. The flickering bulb above barely cast enough light to pierce the darkness, and the man's face remained hidden in the shadows. My heart pounded as I neared him, the damp, cold air clinging to my skin. The closer I got, the more I could make out. His clothes were torn, his body slumped over, though he still strained against his bonds. Blood Streaked chapter ends here. Subscribe to the channel for next chapter.